Hi, I'm Quacksilver. This is Ender Lilies Subspirits Only. Now when I say Subspirits Only, we should talk a little bit about what makes the run different from regular any %. So you'll notice that in the bottom left of my screen there, I have a sword equipped. That sword's name, as you can see on the screen, is Umbral Knight. And in addition to being sort of the narrator for Ender Lilies, he's also your basic attack. You get, through the defeating of main bosses in this game, several more basic attacks that are all linked in common by having infinite or very high casts, and are colored red on the options screen and in your UI. And the Subspirits Only run is the run that beats the game when you unequip Umbral Knight at the first available opportunity, as soon as we get our first non-main skill, and is never allowed to equip any main skills for the entire run. So this means you can run out of damage against bosses, and the fights take necessarily longer and have generally more depth to them. It's my favorite way to play the game. As you walk through the tutorial area, some other things to see. You'll notice Lily's flop, sort of dive, dodge animation there. It's very Soulsian. It's got a tendency to get her hit. Also, you'll notice I am healing through the use of the prayers at the top left of my screen to instantly cancel the ledge get-up animation in most cases. It's not a guaranteed time save because it arrests all of your horizontal momentum, but it does instantly get you up ledges a lot faster. So for instance, you'll see after I flip this lever, we gotta climb our way back up, and so you'll spam heal as you get up the ledges to save a little bit of time. And that's basically the tutorial movement tech. So I'm playing on 1.1, which is a very recent patch for Ender Lilies that just came out, and it radically changed the Subspirits Only route. It used to be due to a glitch that let you preserve momentum and get infinite range off of a hookshot, which is a late game ability. You could beat the game fighting only 2 major bosses, but as someone who prefers glitchless or NMG runs, when the patch came out, I jumped at it, took my chance with it, and even though it's a little bit slower, I think it is a much better run, gets to show off some cooler movement tech. So that was Sigrid. She just sort of runs around, swings her mace at you, and then turns into a giant monster. The combat thing here you'll notice, and then will never come up again for the rest of the run, is as I use Umbral Knight, you notice I'm switching my loadouts. You get 2 loadouts by the base game, and switching between them cancels the internal cooldown at the end of Umbral Knight's 3-hit combo, so you can keep piling on damage. That was a really good Sigrid pattern. Sometimes she can backdash away from you, and she's fully invincible while she backdashes, so getting none of that, excellent for speed. Bosses in this game, their end position also matters considerably, since you don't reset to a neutral state when you end the fight. You purify them where they die and then continue. So optimally, we would like Sigrid to be on the far right of the arena, but you take what you can get. And now, having unequipped Umbral Knight, the run can finally begin. So right away you see the biggest piece of movement tech that will show up across the entirety of this run, which is if you double jump and flop out, as you approach the ground, you can cancel the landing lag of flopping onto the ground with a ability cast, with a sub-spirit cast. Main spirits tend to air stall you, which is a thing that we have to work around in the Subspirits Only run, but Subspirits will cancel your end lag there. So you'll notice, in addition to being gated by number of casts here, Sigrid and all of your Subspirits also have a cooldown, so there is a lot of resource management that goes into the combat in the Subspirits Only run. But yeah, we're gonna just dive a little bit across the White Parish here, head to our first minor boss, well, our second minor boss. Sigrid is a bit of a special case because she gives you an orange skill, but she's a named boss, and she increases your chapter, which I'll talk about in a second after the youth fight. This is Cliffside Hamlet youth. also sometimes affectionately referred to as Fluke because of his resemblance to the enemies from Hollow Knight. This fight is very high variance and very slow since you've got one damage source and it's got a cooldown. You can see here the goal is to get Sigrid at the center of the hurt box to be able to hit with both the forward and backward swing of the mace. That was a really good fight. We got mostly full combo Sigrids, and he died on the right side of the arena. That's quite possibly one of the most high variance boss fights, certainly before the final boss. So earlier I had mentioned the chapter system. The way this game scales with you is that every major boss, and I'm including Sigrid in this, increases your chapter level by 1, which scales up the damage and health of every future boss, as well as scaling up the damage of every enemy in an area after the boss you just beat. So, like, beating Sigrid scaled up every other enemy in the game. Beating the next boss we fight, Jared, will scale up every enemy in the game except for those in his area. So, the goal of speedrunning this game is obviously to cut out as many major bosses as possible, not just because you save the time from not having to fight those bosses, but because it also makes the rest of the game easier. You saw me pick up a resource called Blight there. That is what we're going to use to upgrade our spirits in order to be able to have any hope of out-damaging some of these later bosses. As well as in the top left, you'll notice my character level also provides a flat increase to damage as I level up. The 1.0, the old patch, Subspirits only run, was able to beat the game, killing only 2 major bosses after Sigrid. Thanks to the removal of infinite hook range and hook momentum canceling, we now need 3, so the routing for this category gets all of the available sub-spirits before fighting a single major boss. So we're going to go into this area, the Thicket, clear out all of the available sub-spirits, and then double back to the other available area at the start of the game before fighting our first boss. There you saw me equip Hamlet Youth and upgrade it once as we head on up to our next sub-spirit, Fungal Sorcerer. This is a good climb to show off the utility of the heal cancel on ledge get-ups, as well as a little bit more momentum canceling with spirit casts. I kind of want to preserve ammo here. Fungal Sorcerer is the first of many variant boss fights because of just their movement patterns. Fungal Sorcerer is a boss that teleports, and there is no guarantee of the number of teleports he will give you or when he will do them, so sometimes you just gotta take chances. Like there, he very rudely teleports out of my Sigrid and then back in as the cast finishes up, so a slightly rough opening to the fight there. Something else that you probably saw on other bosses, but we can talk about now, is the stagger bar below their health bar there. When that staggers, when that bar empties and they stagger, you've got a window to attack them. When you have just a couple sub-spirits that are gated by cooldown, it really amounts to 1 attack. So there is not a huge amount of value in stagger damage. But it will play an important feature in some boss fights for some reasons we'll get into later. And there's Fungal. That's our 3rd spirit down. Gonna head back to the previous bench and equip him right away, because one of the major utilities of Fungal Sorcerer is that his projectile goes through walls. And so we can use it, for instance, right here, to skip some levers. Or skip some orbs. But that saves you having to go all the way up and around the previous room to double back to that center transition. Here we're going to be picking up our first of 3 relics. This game uses a relic system that is similar to the charm system in Hollow Knight or the badge system in Paper Mario. You're gated by the number of relic slots that you have obtained. You start with 2. We're going to be picking up 2 more over the course of the run. Manissa's Ring there increases the number of spirit casts I am allowed to use, which is a necessity for some of the health scaling in the later part of this game. There is no way around needing a little bit of extra ammo. This is a nice, cute little safety. It loses almost no time because the elevator has to descend anyway, and we're going to want all of the health we can get for some of the massively scaled later bosses. This is also a quick detour through some enemies to grab our first Chain of Sorcery, which is a relic slot. And then we're going to double back for Floral. You also see me breaking just about every pot, barrel, and box that I run across on my way. There's a random chance of them to drop additional Blight, which we need. This is a very Blight-hungry run, especially now that we're fighting a whole extra boss over the course of the run. The regular any % run, for context, ends with 1 level 1 spirit, 1 level 2 spirit, and 1 level 3 spirit. Sometimes 2 level 1 spirits. We need basically a full complement of 6 level 3 sub-spirits in order to get through the final boss of the any % run. So it's a little bit more resource intensive. That's Floral Sorceress down. She's basically a pushover of a fight. Just spam your damage at her and dodge her incredibly obvious tells. Her as a spirit, she's much more useful because she covers a lot of vertical space and she is a fast multi-hit, which deals good stagger damage. Now, as we go back to the first area of the game, to the Crossroads bench, and head to the other available area, we can make our way towards the area, and now you begin to see like the real utility of movement canceling with spirits here. The thing about aerial multi-hits is you can stagger enemies out of the air, and they take fall damage. Fall damage is for the enemies, but not for us in this game. And if you drop enemies and bosses from very high up, it is far and away your most effective damage source in a lot of cases. There's one boss in particular that we'll see later on that the fight is just, how do you set up falls against her? But I'm also going to go out of my way to kill as many aerial enemies as I can, or as many enemies that I can make fall as I can, because fall damage is a thing you can do while running away from the enemy, and you can get 1 extra level over the course of the run pretty cleanly with a couple extra enemy kills, and you want to have whatever extra damage you can pull out. So a quick detour for some Blight. We don't get every bit of Blight in the areas that we go to. We don't even get every bit of accessible Blight in the areas that we go to, as you see me walk under another deposit up there that we just can't reach. But it's close. Basically every Blight deposit that it takes us less time than 30 seconds to go out of our way to get, we kind of need in this. You notice the treasure chest to my left. That's another safety relic. It slightly reduces the incoming damage taken. Unfortunately, we would only wear it for really 1 or 2 boss fights before dropping it for our damage relics. So given the time to acquire it, put it on, take it off, I tend not to grab it. A consideration for marathon safety, though. That is, you see me attempting to jump past that skeleton man up to the thing and get an early heal cancel, but whiffing the ledge grab. Lily's ledge grab range is a bit of a mystery, and it's something that we'd like to understand a little bit more, especially given the sheer number of air stalls in this game. Every major skill air stalls you. But here's the merchant fight. Merchant fight is probably my least favorite because he's very RNG dependent, because most of your damage is ground level. Fluke, for instance, Cliffside Hamlet youth can't hit him when he's flying, so the fight really consists of waiting for him to deign to come down to your level and then doing a full combo at him. That was actually a fairly good pattern. He flew down at us and staggered quickly and inside the damage over time cloud. That fight can get really out of hand if he just decides to stay up in the corner shooting things at you for a minute or two. There's another quick blight deposit, mostly on our way. And we got one more sub-spirit to get before we start taking down some full bosses. And it's arguably the most important sub-spirit of the run. The Headless Defender is very noteworthy. I mean, first of all, he's a counterattack. Counterattacks are pretty good. But second of all, Headless Defender is one of two sub-spirits out of the entire more than 15 or whatever that air stalls you. And much of the movement tech in the game is based around the idea of stalling you in the air, especially with the little bit of extra height and distance you get from Lily's belly flop. Having one air stall is a major downgrade from the any % run, where you have as many air stalls as bosses you fight, plus Umbral Knight, but it is still going to be absolutely critical in order to be able to do any of the movement tech at all for the course of this run. He's also a very obnoxious spirit fight, as you see me just clearing out some enemies, getting a little bit of extra level. You already see the extra level paying out here. I'm level 3 early for this fight, which is very convenient because Headless Defender blocks attacks from the front, and he turns around very quickly, so every fluke he eats is, 85 damage almost that you're not getting? 85 damage exactly. So the goal of this is obviously to place flukes behind him where available, but there you see a small glitch or AI break with the Headless Defender. He's supposed to charge forward with that slash attack, but sometimes he loops around the arena. Not really sure what causes that. I think it has to do with you dodging as he unleashes the attack. Who's to say? All told, very clean defender fight, clean movement to it, and we got the extra level, which is pretty nice. I mean, we would level up to 3 from the defender fight anyway, but being extra level for the fight itself is pretty nice. So we've got one quick detour before we go into our first major boss fight. It was Jared. So we're going to bench here real quick and grab one final piece of Blight, as well as one final chain of sorcery. And the Blight won't stop coming in for the rest. The Blight will not stop, but that's our last chain of sorcery for the run. I'm also going to take time to kill a couple more enemies, because I am hungry for experience. Just walking right into him. Don't even care. We're save quitting right after this. Alright, so gotta equip our full loadout. These are the 6 spirits we'll wear for 90% of the run here. We're also going to get Bird to 3. Western Merchant is probably, arguably, one of the best spirits to upgrade early. He falls off super hard, but the difference between him shooting 1 projectile at enemies and shooting 3 projectiles at enemies really can't be understated, especially given the huge number of casts he's got here. But this is Jared, lovable mountain man. There, right away, you notice I got about 400 damage from the fall on him. So yeah, the goal is just, he's a very big body, so you can pretty easily get Sigrid double hits on him as he swings at you, moves through the cast. But the goal is really to get him to fall out of the sky, counter his attacks where available. Yeah, it's another 400, almost 450 damage from that. Take a little bit of unfortunate damage there, but Jared has a ton of health. He's got over 7,000, even just at the earliest chapter that you can fight him. But he is pretty inarguably the most predictable boss in the game. He's got big hitboxes, but you can stay out of the way of those fairly easily. Yeah, another 400 damage fall. This is a pretty good fight in terms of falls. Generally, the dream is if you can get like 3 or 4 falls on Jared, you're having a pretty good time of it. And obviously, if you can get 3 or 4 falls without really interrupting your damage combo, like you don't want to be sitting and waiting with him at low stagger bar, but you're not doing damage. It's usually better to stagger. Problem is, he sometimes throws random attacks at you. He mixes up between 2 and 3 dives in the last phase. If he does 2 dives, he'll follow up with either one of those big hammer swings or with a charging attack. Yeah, that's me getting clipped and wanting to heal just for safety so as not to die here. And there you can see the invincible backdash that a lot of bosses share in common, which is really quite annoying. So, slightly more hard-fought Phase 3, but all in all, pretty clean Jared fight. Jared is going to give us a completely useless big hammer swing ability that we'll never use, is going to increase our chapter, which is very unfortunate, but is critically going to give us our dive or our ground slam ability. Ground slam is useful in 2 ways. One, because it breaks floors that have been coated with blight, which we're going to need, but secondly, because the beginning of the slam animation increases your height by a teeny tiny bit. We're going to exploit the hell out of that in a little bit. But first, we got another major boss to fight. We're going to just muscle on over to Elaine. Elaine is the real poster child for fall damage, as we get our second lever skip here. Second lever skip right by the elevator, but no, unfortunately, we need to go get even more blight from this area. Problem with the early game is that all of the blight you encounter is in 10 blight deposit increments. It takes a total of 40 blight to get a spirit from level 1 to level 3. You may have noticed in the Jared fight, some of the later sub-spirits I acquired actually started out at level 2, so there is some progression to that, but it's 10 from 1 to 2, and 30 from 2 to 3, so we are very blight hungry. Another small piece of movement tech there. If you jump within 4 frames of landing on the surface of the water, you can jump out of the water and continue jumping across the water infinitely that way. It is slightly faster than swimming. Also much less dangerous from those sea creatures that want to ram you. So the end of this section, the end of Thicket really is we gotta get past these projectile spitting plants to hit this switch to open up the final path to Elaine. It's a little bit more. We're gonna hit the flower here, get a free heal, just for safety's sake. So we're gonna bench here, do one last little bit of upgrading before the Elaine fight. The Elaine fight. Elaine is a spellcaster. She spends her time mostly flying. I'm just 1 blight short from upgrading Fluke, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we get our other 2 level 1s up to level 2. You'll notice I'm not upgrading Sigrid. That's because Sigrid is the one thing on our loadout that we are going to replace for the end of the run. We got 1 more sub-spirit that we can actually use to get. But this is Elaine. She's got 2 attacks in Phase 1, a volley and a single projectile. The goal is to counter a single projectile, although I get a little bit greedy there. But the volley attack is the only attack she does that puts her low enough to the ground that you can hit it with a fluke. Given that Hamlet Youth is our biggest damage dealer, our biggest single target nuke, you really want a lot of volley attacks until her stagger bar is low enough that you can drop her to the ground. the combination of Sigrid and Floral in the air shreds her stagger bar. So that's basically what the back and forth is. She gains another attack in phase 2, which is that wind saw pillar. It's very obnoxious. Like, wow, does it stay out forever. We also can counter her single shots a lot more effectively than we can the volley attacks. That's generally where I try to place my counters. We do, however, want to save some counters for phase 3 for a reason you'll quickly come to understand. This is phase 3. In phase 3, she starts out with a crazy ultimate attack, but then every time she finishes one of her basic attacks, she tries to stick her claws in you, and in that attack, countering her will always stagger her and drop her out of the sky. So this is a very simple pattern. My defender was on cooldown, but her stagger bar was low enough that we just jumped up and then got a stagger of a normal way, and then one more high up counter here should finish her off. Yeah, that's a very clean Elaine phase 3. That's also why we wail on her with the stagger damaging attacks as she starts out the phase, because if she gives you a volley attack, your defender won't come off cooldown. Like, if you counter her and then she gives you a volley, your defender won't come off cooldown in time. So you want to keep her stagger bar nice and low in case you have to stagger her without using defender. Cool. This is the part where the game expects you to go to the catacombs, defeat Guardian Silva, get the dash ability, which in the dev intended any percent route, is useful for exactly one jump is required, for exactly one jump in the game. It's very helpful for the final boss of any percent, but it is required exactly once. However, we don't believe in doing things the dev intended way, so we're only going to do the first bit of that. We're going to grab our access to the catacombs here, but we're going to stop after just one room, and we need to get just one quick implement out of the catacombs, and then we're gonna never see them again. From a speedrunning perspective, obviously a good thing. From a personal gameplay enjoyment perspective, Catacombs was one of my favorite areas of the game casually. I think the music is incredible. I think the layout, like the labyrinth sort of layout of it, is incredible, although very bad for speedruns. And the boss fight music is probably my favorite track in a game that is full of bangers. But unfortunately, going fast takes a precedence. So we flipped a switch to make an underwater passage accessible to us. That's how you can see that both dive and swim are going to be hard necessary for this. We are going to detour here, grab some very important damage upgrades, and one or two other things as well. Kill that mimic. It's technically faster if you can emerge unscathed to ignore him, but I'm XP hungry. We want a marathon safety. That's also what that amulet gem is for. Given the relative amount of time it takes to get, very worth. Also critically, with that amulet gem, you notice I flopped and then used defender. Air stalls cancel the belly flopping animation such that it allows you to grab ledges. Remember this for later. It's very important. It's just a nice teaser here. But now, having ransacked that room, we also grabbed the Giant's Ring, which is our final relic. It increases your damage done while you are grounded. It increases it by somewhere between 5 and 10 levels worth of damage while you're grounded. It's like a pretty sizable uptick, so we will graciously use it. This is Catacombs. We're going to grab Fretia's Ring, also colloquially known as the Parry Ring. Parry Ring is good because it parries attack. It replaces directionless input on your belly flop with a parry. Kind of nice. It's got some speed tech that we won't get to see in this run for killing bosses by stunning them with a parry. That's for other categories. Highly recommend you check out the Ending B runs of this game to see there's some very creative stun locks you can do with parry. However, we need it because the beginning of your slam animation gives you a little bit of height. Parry arrests your momentum entirely, so you can cancel the beginning of a dive with parry ring for a Jared slam cancel, or GSC, and it saves a little bit of extra height. We're going to do that in combination with some air stalls to attempt to get over this gap that is otherwise unreachable and requires dash. No. Dash is technically required here. There's another skip that's much worse, that involves damage boosting off that bird. We call him Bernard. This gap is referred to as Bernard's Gap. Technically, you can get this without GSCs by damage boosting off the birds. However, Bernard's AI is one of the worst things I've ever seen. There's like a 3-pixel wide spot, that's slight hyperbole, where you can successfully get the damage boost. So the GSC method is much preferred. There, you saw that everything went without a hitch. GSC into Defender Air Stall, into Flop, into another GSC to be able to grab the ledge. That was a pretty good set of attempts on that. It can take a while to get the optimal height on the first GSC, but once you get that, you're basically home free, provided you get all of the inputs after that. So it is technically possible to get through there even without picking up Jared, much less parry ring, because you can damage boost off of Bernard, get bird skip, and proceed. So there is, I lied earlier, there's actually a second place where dash is expected in the dev intended any percent route. That was a really bad mines pattern. We're not sure exactly how global the cycle is for the mines in that room, but you really don't want to be following right behind a mine because you can't swim through it. It's very unfortunate. But there's a second jump that wants dash in the dev intended route, where sub-spirits only, at least, when you can't air stall with, 6 different abilities, Jared slam cancels are absolutely required to be able to get it. This is Stockade. It's the last area we're going to see. It's also one of the most obnoxious areas in the game because of the executioners and the dogs and the scissor men things. Every enemy in this area is out for blood, and thanks to the chapter scaling, 2 of them, getting damaged by 2 of them, including just contact damage, will deal more to you than you can heal off. So we're playing with fire already. Executioners in particular get special bile because they are tall enough that it is difficult to single jump over them. Not impossible, but certainly difficult. And they teleport. Quite a bit. There is one room in particular coming up here in just a second that was for a while nicknamed Hellevator. Yeah, see, so that attack does about as much as a heal. We heal for 70 for the entirety of this run. There are ways to increase the amount you heal, but we don't pick any up. There is, I suppose, a very, very slow safety behind Jared. You could pick up, they're called Priestess's Wish, to increase the amount you heal. But 10 extra health per heal is probably not worth the time loss, even in a marathon setting. So that right there is Hellevator. You notice the Executioner there teleported to me, started an attack, and then canceled it. On 1.0 older patches, they didn't do that, and they could actually ride up the elevator with you, making that one of the most fraught parts of the run. Thankfully, Binary Haze patched it out so that they can't ride the elevator with you. This is a marathon safety. This next boss, Dark Executioner, is very obnoxious. One of the most expected places to die in a run. because there is an enemy gauntlet right before him that you have to get in one try. So we duck into that bench room so that if we die, we can fast travel there, and we don't have to walk all the way back from the Dark Chamber bench, which takes a long, long time. It's still not a great time to walk back through all this, especially because you want to preserve all of your health and heals, but it is much, much safer. So there you see an accidental neutral dodge, which became a parry instead of diving through that archer. This is the Dark Executioner Gauntlet. Something like 3 dogs, 4 executioners, and a scissor hands man. And then a boss that is like an amped up executioner, obviously, because he's Dark Executioner. Easily the worst. Either him or either this room or the final boss are the absolute worst part of the run, and it's not even close. Here, everything can kill you with so much as a glance. You'll notice the executioners in particular have 2 different attacks. There's a fast attack where they swing overhead like that, and a slow attack where they prep their axe and then swing it much longer. They also take a step back when they're doing their slow attack, and it is very easy to accidentally dive into an executioner that is prepping a slow attack. And you take 40 damage for your trouble doing that here. There, another one teleported into me, and all of a sudden, where my health was pretty peachy, now I'm almost dead. Teleporting enemies. Everyone's favorite. So yeah, this fight is a very careful balance between you want to pull as many executioners as possible so that you can hit them with various attacks, but you also really don't want to have your health be at about 5 for the final fight. Dark Executioner comes with a dog, because of course he does. It used to be the case that that dog was always, his AI was such that he always attacked you right away, so you could just set up Fungal and counter with Defender and the dog would always die. That's no longer the case on 1.1. That dog has ended so many runs. Just like for killing you like 3-4 Executioner gauntlets in a row because he backdashes at the start instead of attacking you, and you like try to counter or try to hit him, and then Executioner ruins your day. So Executioner is like his minion brethren. He's got the fast attack and the slow attack that covers a huge range, but he can also teleport before the attack, and so you gotta watch his wind-ups as he teleports. Which makes for a much more nail-biting fight. That was a very clean Executioner, especially after the gauntlet got super out of hand. It's that fight, especially if you're too far on edge and he just sort of walks up to you and fast attacks before you can react to it. One Executioner attack does more than you can heal, so it's a losing proposition to be in that fight for long. But if you stand in the corner of the room, at least he can't teleport behind you, hit you with the nothing personnel kid, as it were. That last archer, by the way, is the most embarrassing place to lose a run. If you get out of the Executioner fight with low health and low heals, and then you just, like, screw around too much and get tagged by an arrow and die. Very embarrassing. So I'm futzing with my loadout here because we want it very correct for Honir. Honir is easily the community's least favorite boss, and also the final boss of any percent. It should become abundantly clear why Honir sucks within about 4 seconds of this fight. So yeah, Executioner spawning in, Honir running away. It's a real bad time. The premise of this fight anticipates that you should have dash, which makes it not a good fight, but a considerably better fight because you have considerably more iframes and can also just, like, stay grounded and never have to worry about, like, is an enemy going to teleport directly into me? Because you can react with a second dash in time. Without dash, this fight is obnoxious. To say nothing of Phase 3, which we'll see much, much later. May have noticed I upgraded Fungal Sorcerer to level 3 for this fight. Fungal 3 is, in my opinion, absolutely critical, because Fungal 3 gets extra attack range in addition to damage. So the pattern for the early phases is, where applicable, you walk up such that you see Honir aggro you, you cast a Fungal, and you run away. Then Honir will slowly walk through the entire damage of Time Cloud, taking a full 300-some damage. If you get lucky, Honir will also jump when his stagger is low, and you can tag him out of the air with Floral Sorceress, but it is by no means guaranteed that you can get a good fall on him like you can Elaine or Jared. Like, there are no good setups for it, and not with this loadout at least. You don't do stagger damage fast enough, and his stagger bar does refill over time, so really, it's just a slog. It's just a slog. In Phase 2, Honir gains the ability to jump forward, which ruins your damage output considerably. You can get very unlucky. The ideal is to not run out of this loadout. You notice I'm mostly staying on loadout 1. That's for very good reason. The idea is to mostly stay on loadout 1 and not run out until Phase 3. You can go a little bit early if you must, but it is hugely preferable. So yeah, I ran out of damage here, so this fight is not going particularly well. What running out of damage on Honir means, it's very unlikely that you run out of damage full stop unless you miss, like, a huge number of attacks. Like, Bird his targeting can get confused. Dark Executioner, who auto-targets as well, thankfully does a little bit better of a job at prioritizing Honir over the minions. But running out of damage against Honir means that you have to play... running out of damage against Honir Phase 1 means that you have to play considerably riskier with counters in the later phases, which opens you up to taking a lot of stupid damage. Speaking of stupid damage, there's an arrow to the face. Alright, so here's Phase 3. In Phase 3, Honir gets sick of running away from you and decides to charge you like an absolute mad person. Yeah, I'm taking about 4 billion contact damage here. I'm trying to dive in. It's possible to get counters on the arrows, but the range of Defender is not such. Honir also just has so much health in Phase 3. Not healing here is a really bold call from Quack. I'm betting I don't actually notice my health here. Yep. Sometimes you get frame trapped in the corner when an ad spawns and decides to ruin your day. The play there was probably just straight up double jump, but that's the Honir fight for you. That's why the estimate for this is what it is. Not quite as painful as a safetyless Dark Executioner death, but still a painful death to take. And opening up the second round of the fight with with contact damage. So yeah, worth talking a little bit while we've got this extra time about the history of the Honir fight. Honir used to be even worse than he is now. He used to spawn ads faster. His knives used to have more range so that you could not even do the fungal strat. And you used to the Executioners, I believe, used to have both the fast and slow attacks. You'll notice in this arena they only ever do the slow attack, which at least makes figuring out what they're going to do slightly less abysmal. But even in his crazy nerfed state, like, the old Honir was a reason to never run any percent. In, like, vanilla any percent, sub-spirits only, anything. The ending B speedrun skips Honir altogether, because you don't actually need him to get that ending. And, like, old Honir, 103 Honir, was truly demonic. This was a much better Phase 1. I've still got 6 fungal casts going into Phase 2. If he doesn't spend too much time jumping at me here, this will be a much cleaner Phase 2 and give us extra health and casts for Phase 3, which is a very good thing. Not if I walk into axes, though. But yeah, after, I think it was 2 different rounds of nerfs to Honir, we've been able to eke out a strategy for this fight that is decently consistent. Obviously, in the old any percent sub-spirits only, because you didn't have to fight Jared, you were only coming in with a... Honir had something like 800 less health for your troubles. So there is... And he did less damage to you, so there is a balance to it, I suppose. But all in all, I would still take this fight, as awful as it is, over the 1.0 fight pretty much any day of the week. Sometimes you just gotta play chess against a knife-throwing madman. There's almost a zen to it. That whirlwind attack does no damage, but knocks you back. There's a spot you can stand directly on top of him, like sort of on his knee or on his toes, where you'll be inside of the knockback for that attack. When you have a spirit like Umbral Knight, that's very, very useful. We don't go for that strat in sub-spirits only, because what are you gonna do? Throw a fluke behind him? So yeah, the rate of ad spawn even being lower, if they spawn in the corner when you are trying to deal with Honir and don't leave the corner, that fight gets super out of hand quickly. So given that I had a lot of damage coming into this, I am not afraid to use Executioner casts, even if Honir is off-screen, just to get rid of ads. Because between them... between the slow Death Waltz and the possibility of random teleports into me, yeah, that's much better. We're getting 200 to 300 damage from Defender, another 200 to 300 damage from Honir falling out of the stagger. Much like Elaine Phase 3, Defender instantly staggers Honir Phase 3, so you do get some fall damage for your troubles. Yeah, see, like that right there, where the ad spawns right on top of you? Got very lucky with the teleport there. Yeah, I was about to get juggled for about 4,000,000,006 contact damage, which, yikes, but that's a clean Honir fight. So, it's all come down to this. There's one final jump that the game expects you to have dash for, with a combination of the hookshot, Jared slam cancels, and our headless defender. We are going to ignore that requirement. Hooks are very entertaining, because if you hook and then cancel out of the reel-in with a parry ring, you get your double jump back. So, we are going to go to the edge, the outer edge of the hook ring, and Jared slam cancel up, dive, headless defender, get a little bit of extra height at the end, and that's a very, very clean final jump there. That is every tool we've had at our disposal. That's what it amounts to. You'll notice from the first run I did of 1.1 Sub-Spirits Only A, took about 10 minutes on that trick. It's not that high variance in a marathon setting, but a sub 130 final room entry is very, very clean. And this is ending A. You just nope the heck out of here, purify some flowers, and don't deal with any of the real problems of the world. But But yeah, this was Subspirits Only ending A. I've been Quacksilver. I highly recommend this game. Subspirits Only is my favorite way to play, but the regular any % runs, as well as All Spirits, which is another very good category, are also excellent. Being developed as we speak. It's sort of the ground floor of the speedrun. And this is a game where alphabetical major boss order is possible, so it's great. Thanks, everyone.